a research scientist at the Burke Museum of Natural History at the University of Washington and a member of Socialist Alternative. Jess Spear, please.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here in the freezing cold weather. I want to talk a little bit about global warming in the context of the global economy and what I think we can do to really tackle this global issue. So, in the wake of Hurricane Sandy, 68% of Americans now think that global warming is a problem. This is an increase of 22% in just the last 3 years. Yeah, this is great. But this shows that a storm following record heat and drought can undo the skepticism that's been bought by the fossil fuel industry. Yeah, absolutely. We should be very happy about that. Unfortunate that it took a big storm, but the point is that it can be undone. But I think we also need to think about the fact that the fossil fuel industry, even having the economic power to buy that skepticism, to fund documentaries, and to fund so-called climate change experts to report on their skepticism on TV, shows us the enormous challenges that we face. The technology to transition society away from fossil fuels already exists. There is no shortage of ideas of how to power society on renewable energy. I mean, the sun and the wind are there. Why are we not using them on a more massive scale? The evidence is clear that we have to move away from fossil fuels. But why isn't this happening? I think the answer to that question, we have to recognize that the way that how industry is organized in the global economy is the main culprit behind climate change and the main obstacle to seriously fighting it. We should absolutely fight against the continued use of coal and oil and gas in industries that are obvious, like transportation or electricity generation. But we also have to understand that the entire global economy is fossil fuel intensive, from the way that we power production to the raw materials used to make products. The first barrier to stopping global warming is the existing fossil fuel-based infrastructure. We have to recognize that the global economy is based on profits, on maximizing profits. That means that every decision, every economic decision that's made on what is produced or how it's produced is based on increasing profits. You know, as a socialist, I see the global economic system of capitalism as the root of the problem. It fails to meet the needs of humanity, it ruins the environment, it fails to solve the global climate crisis, and ultimately needs to be replaced. Because this economic system, in its quest for profit, tends to produce a glut of goods that society really does not need. Take, for example, the plastic industry that produces a massive amount of non-biodegradable products that just end up in landfills. Billions of dollars were invested in this profit-making infrastructure, and corporations want to continue to capitalize off of that. I mean, it's extremely profitable to continue using fossil fuels. 3 of the top 5 Fortune 500 companies are fossil fuel companies. Yeah, boo. Transitioning to renewables, in contrast, is going to require that we build an entirely new infrastructure. It means that we have to find new raw materials. So the point of that is that there's no incentive, there's no economic incentive right now to make that dramatic shift. All of the solutions that have been offered so far, cap and trade, carbon taxes, going green, they all fit within the framework of this current system. Cap and trade and carbon taxes, well, I mean, I think we should absolutely put a cap on emissions, and we should charge, for pollution. But unfortunately, the businesses, the big corporations that we're trying to rein in, all too often are the ones that are drafting the regulations and writing in the loopholes that allow them to continue to pollute. Going green, buying the right light bulbs or buying electric cars, well, I encourage everybody that's able to do so. It just ignores the reality that the vast majority of people in this country and on this planet cannot afford these products. And so changing our lifestyles is ultimately ineffective at pressuring industry and the government to do what is necessary. So it's clear that these solutions aren't going to work because they don't target the root of the problem. And the people controlling the global economy, they're not going to do it. That's clear. We can ask them nicely, we can try to incentivize business to do what's right, but really, how are we going to get there? How are we going to get corporations to be massively taxed? How are we going to get the government to use those taxes to fund a green jobs program? And I think to answer that, we need to think about what Carlo just talked about, the protests around the Keystone XL pipeline in the fall of 2011. You know, they were able to garner that small but really tremendous victory of postponing the pipeline decision for a whole year. You know, how did they do that? There have been protests before. How were they able to get that at that point in time? What else was going on in the fall of 2011 that changed the balance of power? Occupy Wall Street emerged. Thousands of people came out in the street to voice their anger, occupying public spaces, talking about how angry they were at the bank bailouts and economic inequality. This helped to swell the protests from 1,200 to 12,000 people. One of the leaders of the pipeline protests, you know, Naomi Klein, she remarked afterwards, "I don't think we could have won without Occupy Wall Street. I can't imagine we could have." So there is the lesson that we have to draw from that victory. It is pressure from below, from thousands of people to millions, hopefully, eventually, in the streets, demanding change that will win the day. We must begin to build this mass movement to pressure industry and the government to do what is necessary, not what is profitable. So how are we going to build the mass movement? You know, how are we going to get millions of people to come together to demand change? And here's what I'm going to say, something I think is, you know, unpopular, but I think it needs to be said. We have to understand that the vast majority of people that we need to join us here on these steps and in the streets are not going to join a movement just to save the environment. It's not because they don't care, it's because they're struggling to survive. And when you're struggling to put food on the table for your family, you can't also worry about the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. But the solutions to helping people gain financial stability and stopping global warming are intimately linked.
Exactly so, same problem.
Millions of people need good jobs, union jobs, jobs that pay a living wage with good benefits. And we need millions of workers to build a new electric grid. We need more mass transit, and we need millions of solar panels and windmills. A massive jobs program to power society on renewable energy could put all of these people back to work and put us on a path to a sustainable future.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. So the environmental movement has to build alliances with unions, and we have to help rebuild the labor movement in this country. If we want to build a movement powerful enough to challenge this global economic system, we must put the focus on the demand for jobs. To keep up the momentum and help this movement grow, we need victories. We need the victories like Carlo mentioned about, you know, stopping the Keystone XL pipeline. And here in Washington, if we can help to really build a movement to stop the coal terminals here in Washington, we can help build the confidence that if you stand up and fight back, you can win, so that the coal terminals can't not only be built in Washington, but not Oregon, not California, not up and down the whole entire West Coast. They won't find a single city that will allow it. So, absolutely. Beyond building movements, we have to pressure government by supporting independent candidates. We have to build the movement within the electoral system as well. At least 9 of the politicians that are going to decide the coal terminal in Bellingham have received thousands of dollars in campaign contributions from the corporations that are pushing for this. I don't have time to name them all, but they include U.S. Senator Patty Murray, U.S. Congressman Rick Larson, these are both Democrats, Democratic Governor Christine Gregoire, Democratic Bellingham Mayor Kelly Linville, and so on. And Obama has clearly shown that he's not going to stand up to big oil. He pushed to allow Shell to drill in the Arctic, and he's overseeing the largest increase in domestic oil production in a generation. So we have to stop supporting the parties of big business and Wall Street and instead run our own candidates. This can be done. So Socialist Alternative ran an independent candidate for state legislator, challenging the most powerful Democrat in the Washington State House of Representatives, Frank Chop. We got 20,000 votes, 29% of the vote, with a shoestring budget and a handful of volunteers. This shows that it's possible to not only challenge the Democrats, but to win true representation. In 2013, we are calling on activists and everybody on the left to help us build a left slate of candidates to run for the Seattle City Mayor and also the Seattle City Council. If you want to help with this effort, please come see me after the rally or go to our table and sign up. I'm confident that we can build this movement and that we can build an electoral challenge powerful enough to pressure industry and government to do what's necessary. And I look forward to working with everybody here to make that happen. Thank you.